Hi everyone, welcome back to Cloud with Garvit. In today's video, we will be setting up the two services essential for learning and implementing Azure Data Engineering pipelines, and they are Azure SQL Database and Azure Data Factory, which is ADF. So with this, let's get started. We'll start by creating an Azure SQL database, which we will use later with Azure Data Factory. Although in real projects, you will have admins getting this ready for you, but for learning purpose, we will spend a short time to create it ourselves. As going forward, rest of the hands-on that we do will need our database and tables. Now we are inside the Azure portal right now. You can create your SQL databases by clicking at the SQL databases option, which for me is visible on the top tile. But if in case it is not visible for you, you can search it on the top search bar. Let me click on it. As soon as I do that, it takes me to a page where I have my all existing databases listed here, but I want to create a new one. So I click on create, which takes me to a page where it asks me for certain details. Now I want you to be very careful while filling in all these details, because the type of configuration you're going to have on this portal will directly impact the cost of services that you're going to avail. So please make sure that the configuration that I am enabling in this video, you also use the same type of configuration to cap the amount of charge it is going to create on you. I'll just click on pay as you go subscription. For you, if you have free trial, you can select that. Now in resource group option, I select the resource group that we created in the previous video, so that all our services throughout this series are tagged to a same resource group. As soon as I do that, the next thing that I have to do is to create a database name. So I will create a database name of my service, which is Garvit Azure tutorial. Now I have given the name to my database, but I also have to create a server where my database will be deployed. So for that, I click on create new, and I have to give a name to my database server also. So the name that I have given is Garvit Azure tutorial server. Now I also want to select a location where my server will be deployed. So similar to the storage accounts, when we were creating the storage accounts, we selected a location where Azure will deploy the services. Similarly, the server will also need a location. So I have selected here East US, which is the default location. Now next thing that you have to do is to enable use SQL authentication in authentication method. As soon as you do that, it generates more fields for you to enter the details. Let me give a name to server admin. Now these are the credentials which will be used to log into your Azure database. So the name that I have given to this service is Garvit Azure Coach. Then I also need to give it a password. You can also give the password of your own choice. If the password between password and confirm password matches, it will give me an option to click on OK. I just do that. It takes me back to the SQL database creation page. Now make sure that in workload environment you select development. As soon as you do that, you will see that the cost here is reduced significantly. Now it shows 398. Earlier I'll show again. When it was selected as production, it was somewhere around 22,000 rupees per month, but we don't want to spend that much of amount. So I will just click on create, click on development, and the cost, as you can see, is significantly reduced, and now it shows 398 rupees per month. So this is an estimated cost that will be billed on your credit card if you use the SQL database services. Now the next thing that you have to do is to select the required compute plus storage. So for that you click on configure. Now in this you select either general purpose, most budget friendly option, or the second thing that you can select is basic for less demanding workloads. Now I'll tell you the difference between two. So if you select general purpose, you will see that it will charge you based on the time that you're going to use these services. For example, you have an SQL which runs for 1 hour. So in that case, it will multiply this amount with 3600 seconds, and that will be the amount that is going to be billed on your credit card. Now, there can be some cases where you have built a pipeline which takes some time to execute. So your bill will be uh, generated accordingly. To keep a cap on that, the option that I usually prefer is the basic option, which is a fixed amount, which means that no matter how much time your services run, the maximum cost that it will generate on your credit card will be 407 rupees. So this is the service that I recommend everyone to use. So just in case, even if you have forgotten your some of the data pipelines which are running for a long time, you don't have to worry about the cost it generates. In terms of uh, database size, it is going to be 2 GBs only, which sounds limited, but for learning purpose is sufficient. 2 GB is enough for us to create tables and create all the pipelines that we want to explore while learning. Then in the backup storage redundancy, you can continue using the locally redundant backup storage. Now click on next. In the connectivity method, you can click on public endpoint. In firewall rules, you need to enable this option, which is allow Azure services and resources to access this server. Why? Because right now we are just creating a SQL database. Our end goal is to learn ADF, right? So when you learn ADF, your ADF is another service of Microsoft Azure, which wants to interact with SQL database. Now, if you don't enable this option, the two of these services will not be able to link with each other and your pipelines will not function. So make sure that you enable this option so that your SQL database allows ADF to interact with it. Then rest of the options you can leave as is. In security, you don't have to change anything. In use existing data, which is under additional settings, make sure that you select on sample. Why? Because we don't want an empty database to be created. We want that when our database is created, there are certain sample data tables which are already there in it, on which we can practice and learn. And once that is done, you can just click on next, again next. So this is how your entire thing going to look like. You can just click on create. As soon as you do that, it shows you initializing deployment. So we will let the deployment to happen. We just go back to home, click on SQL databases. Right now we see that we don't have our new deployed database showing up here, but we'll give it some time to happen. So now we see that it shows the message that deployment succeeded. So let us just refresh the page and we see that our new database service is enabled. So we now have an Azure SQL database ready for use. Next, let's move on to Azure Data Factory. So for that, let's go back to home. On this screen, you will see an option for data factories. If you can't see it here, you can search it from the top search bar. Let me click on that. On this screen, I will see my existing ADF accounts created. I want to create a new one. So let me click on create, which takes me to a screen where it asks me for subscription. Let's enter the details. Let's give it the resource group name, which is Azure Tutorial. Let's give it the name, which is Garvit ADF Azure Tutorial. This is the name that I have given to my service. Let's keep the region as East US. You can choose it as per your own choice. Version, let's keep it V2, which is the latest. Go to review plus create. it will give us all the final details. We can just click on create. It will take a couple of seconds for the service to deploy, and our ADF account should be ready after that. Meanwhile, let me go back to the main ADF page. Right now I can't see the new service listed here, but we'll wait for the deployment to happen and then it should show up. Okay, it says that the deployment succeeded. Let me just refresh the page. And here is my new service, Garvit ADF Azure tutorial. So we now have both an Azure SQL Database and Azure Data Factory resource. So these are the building blocks you will use for creating data pipelines in ADF. In upcoming videos, we'll start using Azure Data Factory to move data between different services. We'll be connecting your ADF to the Azure SQL database we just created and walk through basic pipelines. So stay tuned. I hope this video was helpful in setting up your Azure SQL database and Azure Data Factory. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe to Cloud with Garvit for more Azure data engineering content. Thank you for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one.